Okay, go.
Alright then. Hello everyone, it's me and Jay. I keep fucking up the intro. I fuck up the intro every fucking time. You might have to take over in the future because I cannot fucking get it right. Alright.
Okay, now. Hey up everybody, it's just me and DJ here.
Troll. He's trolling me, man.
I couldn't resist, could you blame me? Okay, for real.
Okay, for real. Right. Hello everyone, it's me Jake, and...
DJ, hey up.
Hello again, once again, and yeah, continuing on from our last discussion, you know, it got me thinking about, like, maybe we should do these more often, you know, like podcasts in general, and just sitting down on various topics, and...
Basically just sitting down and chatting a bit of shy.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeing if anybody is entertained enough to want to listen to a couple of old blokes drabble on for like an hour or so.
I don't know. Well, it got me thinking, right? You know, with like media in general, and I've been looking into different forms of it. Like you've got your movies, you got your games, you got books, you got all this, right?
You've been looking into different sections. Okay, so your porn, your furry porn, your anime porn,
all of that, yeah. But which kind of brings me to our subject in some sense.
Moving swiftly
along. Anyway, and it got me thinking, like, about, like, what about reading? Because, in a sense, right, media is a way of communication, and it basically has no bounds. So I thought, let's look into different types. So for this one, what's a good one to try that nobody really talks about? Creepypastas. Now, anyway, for those who don't know, a creepypasta is basically a horror story that has circulated the internet, and for one reason or another, people either love, loathe, or whatever them. And they're basically like, they're obviously designed to give you a bit of a fright, but a lot of them are good. Some are really, really bad, and some are flat out offensive, but...
As a fun fact, did you all know that the term creepypasta is derived from the term copypasta, which is just something like a picture, factoid, or something that gets copied and pasted around the internet, and a creepypasta being a version of a copypasta that's supposed to creep you out.
Exactly. And so if I said to you right now, Deej, what does the term creepypasta mean to you? I mean, what do you think about them? I mean, as in terms of, do you read them, or have you heard of them, and all this, that, and the other, pretty much? Well, obviously...
I've written one!
Oh, yeah, you have, because we'll get on to that, actually, because that will be a pretty good one. But in terms of how these creepypastas function, is basically, there are two different sites for them. There's the Creepypasta wiki and the Trollpasta wiki. And you've got... Well,
and DeviantArt.
And DeviantArt, yeah. DeviantArt ones are fucking awful. I'll tell you that now without even thinking twice. Those are awful half the time. But basically they work in that sense that obviously they're designed to creep you out. But here's the real kicker. Half of them are real, whereas a lot of them aren't. Like how they're written and such like that. And it kind of brings me on to the big famous ones. Like,
some of them are real?
Some of them, yeah. No joke. Like, I'm not even lying. I'm not joking. Some are real. Some are written in a way that you would think are real. And others are fake as all fuck. But
so there's creepypastas that are actual accounts of events that really transpired in our reality?
It depends. Because there are some that actually fooled a lot of people, actually. It's kind of like an urban legend, in a way. It's kind of like you think to yourself, what's good, what's bad? But a really famous, there are various famous examples. Like, have you ever heard of Ben Drowned?
Yeah.
Right. I'll put a link in the description for the original story, but this one was what kind of really kicked off how creepypastas work. It's kind of like, before Ben Drowned came out, the term creepypasta was a very obscure and very distant kind of label for something. And it was like, oh, if it's a horror story, there's no way it could be true. But then Ben Drowned came out, and it kind of shocked a lot of people in that sense. It came out in 2011, I think it was. And it was written in such a way that it kind of freaked people out. But to add real fun to it, the author went out of his way to make sure it was so believable, including game footage. Yes, it's basically, those who don't know, it's the story of how the author, his username is Judesable, I think it is, Judesable, and he's recalling over this event where he has basically come out of college, got himself a Nintendo 64 off a mate, and he goes looking for games for it, and then he comes across a load of yard sales, one of which is held by this old man at the end of the street, a mysterious old man, who basically gives him a kind of scarred cartridge of Majora's Mask. Literally, the label's been ripped off and all it has is Majora written on the front, right? Mm-hmm. And he gives him it for free, and he's like, oh, that's brilliant, because I used to play this. So he goes off, starts playing it, and at first everything's alright, but the game's a bit glitchy here and there, you know, little bits and bobs, and he thinks, oh, it's old, or it's been in a garage for years or something, I don't know. But as he slowly goes on, it starts getting a lot worse, like, he's having sleepless nights, he's having all sorts of other, like nearly having a mental breakdown, let's be fair, and he tries multiple times to give it back to the old man, but the old man's gone missing. He's just gone, like the house has been put up for sale and all that. But I'm not going to spoil it anymore because it's a fantastic story. Here's the thing. When you got something really popular, you'll always get your copycats out there and today the term creepypasta is basically story that could either be really well written and give you a fright, or really shitly written and then just post it out there without even looking twice.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, we've read a couple on online before, and I don't know, shameless plug number 1, Sonic EXE.
How is it a shameless plug if you didn't write it?
Well, for our videos, yeah. I mean, all the views and that, all 10 views we might get of it, but...
We did the flipping drinking game of that.
Yeah. Also, so, I don't know, which ones have you read by any chance? Have you read any really good or bad ones or anything?
Well, of course there is the classic Sonic EXE.
Oh, that lovely one.
And Jeff the Killer.
Oh, fucking hell, yeah.
And then you had me read Nina the Killer. Oh, that was an ordeal.
Yeah, the best...
And, of course... one that I pretty much had no choice but to read was Jake the Killer.
That one you wrote, didn't you? Just as a laugh. But the thing is, with creepypastas in general is, yeah, they're supposed to be well written. They're supposed to be believable. But there are those out there who kind of really hijack the term and go, oh, I'm going to write the ultimate pasta and it'll get me popular and I don't even give a shit if it's well written, proofread or anything. I'm just going to write it, chuck it out there without even thinking twice, love it. That's it pretty much. And it's just like, and sadly, you've got a lot out there that are in that kind of mindset, really. I don't know where to go with this. Like, for example, you've mentioned Jeff the Killer, right?
Uh-huh.
That's only one of maybe dozens and dozens and dozens of copycats. Because Jeff the Killer is the most famous one out there. Let's put it that way. When people think creepypasta, they instantly think Jeff. And that's not a good thing, by the way. I'm not praising the shit out of it. That story is fucking terrible. I mean, what do you think of old Jeffy boy? I mean...
I think, how the fucking fuck does this kid survive getting his face covered in bleach and alcohol, and how would that mixture actually go up in flames? Surely the bleach would stop that?
Well, do you want to hear something? The version we read is the 2011 version, which is actually a rip-off of another version of Jeff the Killer that was written in 2008. From what I've heard, basically, the term Jeff the Killer was going to be this one kid on YouTube, I forget his name, but from what I've heard, he wrote the story, and originally he was going to have acid thrown in his face, not bloody bleach. And it basically got stolen, or it got used by someone else, who went and wrote 2011's version, which is the most famous version out there now.
Somebody actually wanted to steal Jeff the Killer. I find it more believable that somebody wanted to steal the footage for Food Fight.
Well, you're kind of along the right lines, really, in that term. But because of Jeff the Killer's, I'm going to put in quote marks, success, it spawned God knows how many copycats out there. So you've got Jane the Killer, which she's not even a killer, let's be fair. I mean, I've read it, and she doesn't kill anyone. She's a Mary Sue, as people like to put it. Like, she can do literally anything, and she's so beautiful, and everybody wants her.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and she's only 14, you sick bastard. You've got Homicidal Liu, who is basically Jeff's young or older brother, I think, who was apparently murdered by Jeff at the end of the original story, but somehow survived.
So he survived getting killed, eh? Warren Fox from Hollyoaks did it.
Come on, I mean, he should become a stuntman if he can survive death and come back from it. But
yeah, I mean, hey, fuck Reaper. Suicidal Leo's where it's at.
Aye. Let's see, there's also Cleo the Killer. Not read that one, don't know, but it's got killer in the title.
Never heard of it.
There's Charlie the Killer, which I listened to today, and it's the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard. But can I also say, right, whatever we mention in this, we're not taking the piss out of the author as a person. We're only taking the piss out of the stories. Can we just, get that out there?
Yeah, it's like we do. It's like we criticise the work that we are subjected to.
Yeah.
Just because we think that a story is stupid doesn't mean that we think that that author is stupid. Maybe they're just like this really intelligent person who just happened to write a stupid story.
Yeah.
We don't know all about
The thing
them,
is
so it
that
wouldn't be fair to insult them.
It could be practice, it could be something, but please, if anyone ever wants to write something, please proofread your work. That's basically number one, pretty much, of any kind of criticism. Like, make sure it works right. But it brings me on to a really famous example that is also the most hated out of them all, pretty much. Basically, this is a Jeff the Killer knockoff that somehow got popular. I don't know how. It's fucking dreadful. It's called Clockwork, Your Time Is Up, right? And basically, this is...
Name sounds familiar.
This is the #1 most hated story on the Trollpasta Wiki.
Oh, wow.
Basically, the Trollpasta Wiki is where all the bad creepypastas go. All the ones that are either not proofread, not given any care or thought or anything, or just sound really stupid. It basically is the storage point where it is. But anyway, Clockwork is, without a doubt, the most disgusting, most violent, and most awful story you could ever read, and not in a funny, ha-ha kind of way. This is awful. I'm not even going to joke around here. It's like really, really bad. Let's put it that way. Because it basically says that if you're bullied at home and at school, sexually or physically beaten or whatever, in any way, shape or form, you'll end up becoming an overpowered psychopath, right? And I can't really get into this without really... I don't want to trigger anybody in a good... you know what I'm saying? I don't want to trigger anybody.
Don't want to bring up any traumatic memories.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get into it, but this story takes real-world...
Events?
Well, maybe not... Yeah, real-world events or things that can happen that could traumatize a person and basically uses it for shock factor. That's all it is. Like, I can't really... I don't want to say read it because it is fucking... I can't really describe it. But the point I'm trying to say is, right, that it kind of set a new low in how creepypastas are written. And in a lot of cases, some idiots out there think, oh, that's a good idea, I'll use it in mine. Let's put it that way.
Oh, no.
But let's go back a little bit. Instead of just killer characters, let's look at cliches. Basically, with a lot of these creepypasta cliches, they're basically like, they're always the killer character who goes around with a knife, is physically, mentally, or sexually abused at home, or whatever, goes out, becomes psycho, kills anyone who walks the earth. That's it, pretty much. It's like, if you're walking the street at night, you're a potential target for no reason at all.
Apart from Jane the Killer, whose body count is 0.
Exactly. They try to make it sound like she's a bloody killer, but it's like, no, you're not. You're not fooling anybody.
I mean, jeez, even Jake killed 3 people in his first one.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, it was like in that Fan Pasta Euro, it was like, that was hilarious, so let's put it that way. Definitely put a link in the description for that one.
Yes!
But,
link to Jake the Killer!
Oh, yeah. But it brings me up to another point, is other cliches, like the greatest one that kills your story instantly, hyper-realism. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to Sonic EXE, aren't we?
Well, we're going to, really. Basically, the term hyper-realistic is, quite frankly, a joke in the Creepypasta community now. And I think to myself, if that comes up in your story's dead on arrival. If you write hyper-realistic, your story's dead. That's it, pretty much.
It's pretty much like a Creepypasta trope at this point.
Yep. Basically, blood, gore, and violence, yeah, those are kind of tropes if not handled correctly. But hyper-realistic, story's dead. That's literally it. Which brings me on to our favourite one, Sonic EXE.
As I said earlier in this cast, we did the drinking game for Sonic EXE, and it's a good thing Jake's got video evidence of it, because quite honestly, I can't remember most of it.
Mm-hmm. Basically, the story of Sonic EXE tells of the author, Tom, who gets sent this mysterious package from his best friend, Kyle, in brackets, who he hasn't seen in 2 weeks, as if that's a point. And Kyle tells him, look, I'm being tortured by this. You've got to get rid of this disc all the way, please. I'm begging you, get rid of this disc. And Tom just goes, oh, let's play it. Literally, he just goes, let's just have a play on it, because it's Sonic. I love Sonic so much, let's play it. Even though your mate's just told you, get rid of it.
That sounds like another trope that I see in a lot of media called stupidity is the only option.
Yeah, they're only stupid when the plot requires them to be, pretty much.
Basically, this plot requires Tom to be a dumbass.
Well, dumbass, crybaby, biggest idiot on the planet, you know, just the list goes on because he's such a little pansy.
Too dumb to live!
Yep, pretty much. Anyway, the story goes on where he installs the game as a go at it. It's basically of a demonic Sonic who kills all of his friends, right? You know, Tails, Knuckles, and to the author's surprise, Dr. Robotnik. But the best part of this whole thing is just he goes into agonizing detail about how it's scaring him to death, and he feels so alone, and he feels like crying every time he's watching this, and it's like,
stop fucking playing then!
Yeah, exactly, there's that, but also the fact that he's such an idiot, this kid, because it's just like, oh, I'm feeling so sad. You know what? I'm just going to keep going and make myself feel worse. It's like, oh, go fuck yourself, mate.
I know that it's like, there's morbid curiosity, and then there's just ignorant masochism.
Tell me about it. And I don't even care about spoiling it. You know, at the end, the punchline, or the big scare factor at the end is, it ends with a Sonic plushie somehow materialising out of nowhere with bloodstains under its eyes. Well, drawn on, I presume, and that's it. That's the end of the story. It's like, wait, so all that build-up just for that? It's like, wow. You know what I mean? But it doesn't end there, because JC the Hyena, the original author, didn't stop there, because when his quote-unquote masterpiece got moved off the Creepypasta wiki into the Trollpasta wiki, he threw this massive hissy fit on for Affinity, where he wrote this huge blog post saying, oh, everyone who hates my work is obviously a troll. You know what? All you fans of mine, get out there, write more fan fictions, draw more fan art. We're going to have the last laugh yet. I'm going to take the internet by storm. I'm not joking. Like, literally, it's all out there. He's such a freaking idiot and a narcissist. It's unbelievable.
Wow. Okay, yeah, we said that we weren't
taking the piss out of authors.
We weren't criticising authors, just criticising their work, but if this guy actually has done this and that has shown actions that are grounds for criticism. I mean, yeah, Jake just called him a friggin' idiot, but he has acted in a way that pertains to the actions of a friggin' idiot.
Well, the best part of it, though, is that, yeah, I know I said I'm not going to take the piss out of authors, but he really does deserve it, because he acts like a little kid throwing a massive tantrum, and then he goes on to say, well, don't worry, I'm going to come back. And he writes an even bigger, stupider sequel to Sonic EXE called Sonic EXE Round 2. I know, original name. And it's even longer, more illogical, and more stupid than the original.
How many times is the word hyper-realistic mentioned?
Not at all in that one, to be fair, but in the original it's mentioned about 6 times. I'm not joking.
Oh, wow.
But let's get back to a little bit. But my point being, though, is when it comes to a lot of this, is you just gotta. It's all about writing a perspective, like taking an idea, building it up, and seeing where you can go with it. Like, I mean, I am not a horror writer. I'm trying to be a writer, but I'm not a horror writer. Let's put it that way. I'm always thinking, how can I make build the atmosphere? How can I build the character? How can I build the situation? Like that, right? One of the big things is I'm always scared to death of my grammar. Like, I'm always checking it through, always making sure it works, as it works. And in a way, it kind of, you have to think to yourself, what can I do to make this better? Rather than rely on the tropes, in a sense.
You're looking for a proofreader?
Yeah, well, there's that. But what I'm saying, though, is I'm sure everyone's got an idea in their head, right, to expand upon. And it's like, how do you do that without looking into the tropes, which is something? But the thing with creepypastas that I've looked into is they kind of teach you how to write, in a sense, really. Because it's like the good ones last really well, because it's like Ben Drowned, for example, again, is fantastic in that sense, because it's like it could take place anywhere. Like, it literally, it may have been written in 2011, but it's long, but it's really, really creepy in that sense. Like, it doesn't rely on blood, it doesn't rely on scare factors or anything. It just builds the atmosphere slowly, and you actually feel quite chilled after reading it in that sense. But I don't know, I mean, have you ever tried like horror writing or anything like that?
Well, no, not really horror. I just mainly go for comedy, satire.
So just like light-hearted stuff, but you want to just enjoy and to build something up.
Yeah, I think the closest thing that I've written to horror was Jake the Killer.
Yeah. And that was a satire of Jeff. So I'm trying to look in. I've been reading quite a lot of them lately, like to try and not really do research, but more just look into them and refresh my memory on them. And one in particular that, as I was saying about tropes and stuff, creepypastas nowadays, you're going to run into tropes everywhere. Even the good ones have a lot of maddening tropes on them. Like Ben Drowned is like the biggest example of this, because this is the one that kicked it all off in a way. So let's move on to troll pastas. Basically, troll pastas are obviously the bad ones, right? But the problem with them is a lot of them are written in such a way that they're not even funny bad, they're just boring bad, right?
Like Norm of the North bad.
Yeah. Like, for example, let's see. I mean, we've read a few where they were just very generic. Like, here's one for you. They come in different categories. Like, you've got your lost episodes, you've got haunted games, stupid legends, and stuff like that, right? And lost episodes is basically another faction that's been beaten into the ground, pretty much.
Oh yeah, let's pick random kids show.
Yeah.
Like if some people be like, okay, the more innocent, the better, or they'd be like, okay, it's got to be one that has some like some content that adults can appreciate as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's just like think of the most disturbing shite we can and claim that it was in a lost episode.
Yeah. It's basically like, we've read one, Dead Bart, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, Dead Bart, as well as bloody Squidward's suicide.
Yeah, basically, a lost episode, in the most broad sense, is basically, in the story's context, it's always an episode that was either accidentally aired and wasn't supposed to, or the author of whatever story magically somehow gets hold of a copy and gives it a watch. And it's like, you've had things like Dead Bart, which, to be fair, it's a very generic story, but it's kind of well written in that sense that it gives you a plot point, it works with it, takes a little twist and turn here, finish. But you'll get things like, let's see, like, one that I thought was pretty daft is suicidemouse.avi.
Suicide Mouse?
Yeah. According to the story, SuicideMouse.avi is a lost clip from the 1930s or so from Walt Disney when Mickey was still in black and white. And the story reads that it's basically a 9-minute clip of Mickey Mouse just literally walking down a road, and with buildings in the background, and the animation's very badly distorted, and it's degrading horribly in that. And the only thing that's creepy about it is, in the background is the music. The story reads that it's like someone literally banging on a keyboard or something, like in a random notes. And it's saying, oh, and there was also all these screams in the background of someone getting tortured or something like that. And then it just ends. And I'm like, okay, that's stupid. But then, oh, let's add something else on top of it. One of the employees at Disney who was reviewing the footage for DVD came out of the editing room, simply went up to one of the random security guards, pulls his gun out of his holster, shoots himself in the head. And it's like, right, okay, so what was that all about? And in a sense, that's also another trope, because the people who watch it always kill themselves after watching it. And it's like, well, what's scary about it? What is scary about this that you're showing?
Well, okay, I have seen some like scary crap in my time, but never anything that instantly makes me want to end my own life. Because
that's
the thing is with these stories is like, yeah, they say, oh, the person who saw it finds a way to kill themselves and then just instantly does it. But it's like, what makes them do it?
Not a clue.
Were they that traumatized by what they saw? Or is there something supernatural about the content that drives people to do it? Like at the end of Read or Die with Beethoven's Suicide Symphony? Context, authors!
Yeah.
It's important!
Well, it brings me on to... that's a trope where where the author apparently kills themselves afterward, right? But here's the real kicker. All the stuff, all the evidence is online, so you can watch it yourself. And it's like, how is this death worthy? It's really not that bad. And it's also crept into creepypastas based on games as well. Like, one of the big ones that I don't want to actually read online because it's such a pain in the arse is Blood Whistle, as it's called. Blood Whistle is this incredibly long Mario story about an author who receives... He actually knows it's a hacked game. He got off his mate, and he knows that it's scary, he knows it's bad, but he still plays it, and it scares him. Wrap your head around that one.
He's a dumbass.
Yeah. But at the end of it all, literally, this game does nothing to him whatsoever. He's not paranoid, he's not on drugs or anything, but in the end, kills himself. Why? Seriously, why? He doesn't have any other reason. It's a scary ROM hack, I played it, scared myself, time to die. It's like, what?
Pretty much.
It's so idiotic. And the problem with it is it's written in such a pretentious and very up its own arse kind of way. Like, it'll take the simplest thing. Like, seriously, it's longer than a bloody Stephen King book, I reckon, because it's like, it's written in such a way that it'll describe everything in such a stupidly detailed way. It's like, just get to the point, mate. Seriously, just get to the fucking point. But, yeah, I don't want to read that one online. It's fucking nasty.